There's something even more terrifying about experiencing scary moments when you're young and more helpless. My parents worked full time, and my very old grandmother lived with us and took care of me during the day. I was an only child at that time. Throughout the day, grandmother would take long baths, and I'd watch TV until she got out and played with me. One day, she took much longer than usual. I kept calling out to her and got no response. I went to the bathroom door and knocked. She didn't come out, so I went in. She was submerged to her chin. Her body was twisted. Her face was so contorted, and it looked as if she was in agony. Her lips were completely skewed to one side of her face, and her eyes were just blank. I don't remember what happened next. My parents said I ran out of the apartment screaming. The neighbors heard me, then called an ambulance and my parents. My grandmother had a stroke and would be bedridden for the rest of her life. She died a year or so later. It's weird. I can't really remember what she looked like anymore, but her face that time stuck with me. My parents said I didn't speak for weeks afterward. When I was 9 years old, I was lying in my bed, which was next to a window. It was open that night. I was about to fall asleep when I heard inconsistent footsteps outside, as if from someone limping. I thought it was my dad, as he had a tendency to get up at night to have a smoke, and he had a limp from a football injury. I brushed it off, but then I heard it again. I started to wonder what it was, and when it got closer to my window and stopped, I freaked out and slipped under my blankets. After maybe 5 minutes, the noise would move away from my window and then come back. It went on for over an hour. The next morning, I asked my parents if they went for a walk last night. Neither of them did. When I told them what happened, they shot each other a terrified look and told me to keep my window locked from then on. I was walking with my grandmother at night along a gravel road, close to where she lives out in the country. We were heading home to her house when 6-year-old me turned to my grandmother and asked who the lady who ran across the road behind us was. My grandmother turned around and saw nobody, so she asked me to describe the woman down to a T. I described a cruel woman who used to live not far away. She'd been dead for 10 years. I didn't live there, so I didn't think much about it. But my grandfather told me my description of the lady I had seen was so on point that my grandmother never walked alone there after dark again. That was 29 years ago, and she still refuses to walk that road alone at night. I was walking through the woods with a couple of friends, and we came across a clearly abandoned car. It was so deep in the woods, I have no clue how it even got there. We were all kind of creeped out, but I decided to go in for a closer look. Some of the windows were smashed. Some were covered in filth and grime. I peeped through a smashed window and saw what was distinctly a human leg. I screamed and ran. We all ran and never went back. I never told anyone, but I still think about it all the time. I was about 14 years old, and I was home alone while my parents were out visiting some friends. Around 9:30 at night, I suddenly heard some voices downstairs. I knew all the doors were locked, and no one besides my parents could get in. so I was afraid people had broken in. It sounded like at least a dozen people were having some sort of dinner party, but I couldn't make out exactly what they were saying. I made it halfway down the stairs and still heard the voices talking. Finally, I yelled out, "Hello!" All the voices instantly stopped, and I didn't hear anything again. So if you like this story, then subscribe to our channel. Till then, bye.